Welcome, fans of the best type of cinema. Today we're going to be discussing my top 10 best horror films of 2022 that I personally watched. In 2022, there was actually a lot of really good horror films that came out, but I do think that there are 10 that definitely stuck out above the rest. There's a few outliers that are almost in that top 10 list, but these were some of my favorite movies that I've seen in a long time. In fact, 3 of them are in my top 10 all-time favorite horror movies ever made. Starting us off at number 10, and I can feel the hate glares coming dead at me as I say this, and that's going to be Halloween Ends. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand why somebody might not enjoy this film in this franchise, but if this was named anything else, had no Michael Myers in it, had no Laurie Strode, then this would be a fantastic horror film that people would rave about, in my humble opinion. And in fact, the thing that I think held this movie back the most is the fact that Michael Myers was actually in the film. I think that it would have been amazing if they would have just made this film without using Michael Myers at all. There would have still been plenty of haters, but I think that over time, without Michael Myers being in this film, this would have been a absolute classic. People would have ended up loving this film 10 years down the road. But unfortunately, we got the ending we got, and that did bring this movie down a little bit for me, but not too much that it's not in my top 10. Coming in at number 9 is The Black Phone. This is a movie that is based on a short story written by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. It's directed by Scott Derrickson, who also directed Sinister and The Exorcism of Emily Rose. This was just a really fantastic film with Ethan Hawke playing just one of the most sinister, menacing villains that I've seen in a really long time. Just an absolutely fantastic performance from him. Even the children in this film did an amazing job. I went into the movie expecting a little bit more horror from the supernatural elements than we ended up getting, but I absolutely love the way that it all connects in on itself and how we get to the ending that we got. I really enjoy the stories that have come out from Joe Hill, even though, some of them haven't gone too much further, like Nosferatu, and then he also wrote Horns and the graphic novel for Lock and Key, which is a Netflix series. I really enjoy the stories that he has produced and what has been made into film from his writings, and I really can't wait to see what both the director of this and Joe Hill have in store for us in the future. At number 8, we have Nope. This is a new Jordan Peele film. Once again, he makes an amazing movie. This is my least favorite of the 3 that he's made, but I still absolutely loved watching this movie. I'm not a big sci-fi person. I'm more fantasy and slasher and zombies. I'm not too much into aliens, and I never really have been. Just seeing how different characters interact in his films is really fun. The way that he writes them, it just feels so much more interesting than a lot of films do nowadays, where everything typically is cut and paste, and it is not super predictable what characters are going to do in most of Jordan Peele's movies, in any of Jordan Peele's movies. And I really, really love his films. He is on track to being one of my favorite directors ever. I know he's only produced 3 films so far, but every single one has been a hit. I can't wait to see what he does next. At number 7, we have Prey. This is the new Predator film, and boy, was I impressed with this movie. I like that they took a step back, downplayed the actual threat, where it's not universal or world ending or possible world ending, or it's tribal versus high technology. It's such a blast to watch. This is one of the few films that I've actually rewatched about 5 times this year, and I will definitely be watching this again At number 6 is a movie that I think is going to be a little bit controversial to some people because of the main character, but I'll get into why I actually really enjoy this movie. But number 6 is Deadstream. This character is annoying, but at the same time, the way that he is interacting with his live chat the entire time while he's in this abandoned haunted house. It was one of the few horror comedies that actually had me laughing constantly watching this movie. I think this is a movie that is a good bridge movie whenever you're talking about what movies should I show people that are not into horror. And in fact, my roommate, he doesn't like horror movies, but he absolutely loved this film. It's got enough going for it that it's not going to just appeal to horror fans, it's going to appeal to a wide range of people. It's just a good horror comedy film, in my opinion. Unlike Dashcam, who also has a terribly annoying character, this one doesn't try to make you feel bad for the annoying character. In fact, you're like, dude, you're dumb. You are so stupid the entire film, which Dashcam does not really do that. It almost feels like it wants you to root for the annoying character, whereas Deadstream does not feel that way. At number 5, we have The Menu. This is a film I was interested in whenever they first showed the trailers for it, and I loved the cast that was in it. And I was like, okay, I'm probably going to really enjoy this movie. Let's just see. I love the fact that it kind of pokes fun at the culinary world, and it also pokes fun at the rich and how they use their money to feel like they themselves are elevated above others. Kind of makes a mockery of that. The best thing about this film is that every moment is purposeful. Whenever you're watching most films, you're like, somebody wrote this. Every moment in every film is purposeful, but it's not. In most films, there's a lot of downtime, there's a lot of dead space, there's filler, there's stuff in there that they're just trying to eat up time, and a lot of times there's also a lot more that they shoot in movies that gets cut out, and important pieces, and sometimes they leave in stuff that's not important. But every single moment of this movie, and it might not be this way to everybody, but every single moment of this movie made me interested, made me go, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Every interaction, every moment, every piece of dialogue, I was on the edge of my seat the entire movie, even though I knew what the outcome was, because it actually tells you halfway through the movie what the outcome is going to be. But to me, that was the beauty of it. I absolutely love this film. This will be one that I will probably rewatch again and again. At number 4, we have Barbarian. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be wondering why this is so low. Well, that's because the top 3 movies on this list are some of my absolute favorite movies, not just for the year of 2022, but ever created. Getting into Barbarian, watching the trailer for this, I really thought that this was going to be a lot more horror-driven than it actually was. Pleasantly surprised at what I got when I got to the theater. They gave nothing away in the trailers. Halfway through the movie, I was still going, what the hell is going on? I was not able to guess. Everything came out of left field. That doesn't really happen in cinema very often. The character performances were absolutely fantastic. The pacing of this movie, the way that it's filmed, and then when you understand what's really going on, you go, what the hell? Like, this is not what I was expecting at all. If you have not seen Barbarian, do yourself a favor, go watch this movie. You will at least be surprised. Coming in at number 3 is X. This is an A24 film that I didn't watch the trailer. I just read a brief description. It was about people going to Texas to film a porn movie, and there's an old lady killer. That's all I knew about it before watching this movie. I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun little slasher film, and boy. And I actually didn't know that it was an A24 film until the movie started, and I saw A24, and I was like, oh, What are they doing making a slasher movie like this? I was so shocked at how good this movie was. The filmography in this movie is absolutely amazing. The character performances, Mia Goth is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors. Mia Goth's performance was so good in this movie. I didn't know she was playing both Maxine and Pearl until after the movie, and I was like, who was playing Pearl? And I looked her up and I was like, oh, it's Mia Goth playing both characters. And that was just great. But you get some brutal, absolutely brutal, awesome kills in this. You get this deranged old woman that's just creepy as hell. And then you also have Jenna Ortega, who is quickly growing her name in the horror community. Absolutely fantastic film. Slasher films are my favorite subgenre of horror, and this is one of the top. At number 2, we have Terrifier 2. I had seen both All Hallows Eve and Terrifier before watching this film. I liked Art the Clown. I thought that it was a very freaky, interesting slasher villain, easily becoming an iconic villain, which we don't get as often anymore. I think that the horror genre needs more iconic villains, and Art the Clown is a perfect one to get us going. I really hope that with Art the Clown and Sam and some of these newer, more modern villains, that we start getting more iconic villains again. Like Victor Crowley isn't quite good enough. With the new Megan movie, I don't think that Megan is quite good enough to become iconic yet. We'll see. Victor Crowley, if they keep going with that series, we'll see if he becomes even more iconic. When you watch All Hallows Eve and Terrifier, those movies have some issues. This movie was full throttle, in your face, non-stop, bloody massacre, craziness. It didn't have like the greatest story in the world, but it was definitely a spectacle, an interesting spectacle, captivated my attention the entire time. This is definitely one that I will rewatch over and over again. I cannot wait for Terrifier 3. This has become one of my favorite movies of all time, just because of how much of a spectacle it was and how good it was at being a spectacle. There's a lot of movies that are spectacles, but not all of them are good. And at number 1, and a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, this movie is now in my top 3 movies, not just in horror, but top 3 movies of all time, and that is Pearl. I loved X so much. I went and saw Pearl day 1 and sat down ready for this movie to not live up to my expectations because of how good X was. This movie was one of the best character dramas that I've seen in a very long time. Mia Goth's performance is absolutely perfect in this movie. And then when you get to the end and she gives that long monologue, and then it follows into this chase sequence, it is some of the best cinema that I've seen in a very long time. The derangement of this character, she is already broken, but as those cracks start to show and the broken insides start to leak out, you see this mad psychopath starting to become who she really is and show that to her loved ones. It becomes the downfall of her loved ones. This movie gave me absolute respect for both Ti West and Mia Goth in cementing their brilliance into the horror genre. I cannot wait for Maxine. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. And this is another character that I truly believe has the potential to be iconic. And we need that. We need iconic villains. Pearl is an absolute iconic villain and a must-watch, in my opinion. This is a must-watch movie. You don't even have to watch X if you don't want to watch a slasher film. Watch Pearl. It is a character drama about the creation of an absolute psychopath, and it is fantastic. So those are my top 10 best horror films that I personally watched in 2022. If you like this, please check out my top 10 worst movies that I saw in 2022, and we can hate on some movies together. Anyway, y'all have a good night. I'll see you later.